I was 19 when the MX5 was first released, and there's no way I could afford to buy an MX5. And then when I got a bit older, I had a family, so it just wasn't doable. And I'm now down to just one child left at home out of 4. And so I was thinking, once that last child leaves home, I'll buy an MX5. And Phil said to me, I wouldn't wait that long, Russell, because the problem is you won't get to enjoy it for long enough if you do that before you find it's too low to get in and out of. So I started to talk to my wife about buying it sooner rather than later. It took me a year to convince her to let me buy one. And when I'd finally convinced her, I sort of had my heart set on NA, which was the old original ones with pop-up headlights. Yeah? I really loved NAs, and right up to the moment I popped in one. Discovered that, again, being over 6 foot tall doesn't really work. I can fit in an NA, but it's not easy, like I can't put the roof up and things, so not overly practical. So I had a friend who had an NC, he said, well, try this out. And the NC, which is what these ones are, were always considered, until about 5 or 6 years ago, were considered to be the black sheep of the MX5 family. The reason they were considered that is they're slightly longer, slightly wider than the other MX5. So it's still not a huge car, but park it next to any of the other models of MX5 and it looks huge. Now, the reason they're so big is these were designed at the same time as Mazda was designing the Mazda MX5, and Mazda simply couldn't afford to do 2 sports cars from the ground up. So they share the same floor plan, although it's shortened for the MX5. But that's why these are slightly wider than other MX5s, because they're an RX8 platform sort of thing. And so anyway, I hopped in that, and despite the fact that they're the biggest MX5, they're not the ones with the worst power to weight ratio. In fact, these have a very good power to weight ratio by MX5 standards. And I fit it. I mean, in all honesty, my head's up to here, and this is the roll bar, so I don't want to roll it. But I mean, it does have 3 roll bars. It's got one built into the windshield frame and one behind each seat. And overseas, taller people than me have rolled them before, and generally you're not going to walk away from the accident. You will have a head injury, but you will live and recover. So there is hope if I do crash, and I've got that still. So anyway, after, as I said, it took me a year for my wife to let me buy an MX5. So after trying my friend's NC, I thought an NC might be the way to go. And it took me, I don't know, a month or more to find this one. I travelled all the way up to Ohio to get it. 2 weeks after I bought it, my wife turned to me and said, I want a convertible too. So we actually initially went out and we bought her a Volkswagen Beetle convertible, which on paper was a brilliant car.
Loved that car.
Yeah, it was 2 owners, New Zealand U, we were the second owner, had done just under 100,000 kilometres, they'd already had its major 100,000 kilometres of service. Okay? So on paper, brilliant car, but I've got to be honest, and I should have known better, I actually knew in advance, and I decided to take the risk, never ever buy a European car if you live in New Zealand and the car you're looking at is like 20ish years old. Okay? European cars are very, very expensive when things go wrong. And we owned this Beetle for a month.
1 month.
1 month, and everything you could possibly think of went wrong with it. Some of it was just little things. I closed the driver's door one day, and the window decided to shatter inside the door. I didn't slam it, I just closed it. Now, the insurance company said, that's all right, we'll pay for it to replace that, but it will take 6 weeks to get one from Germany. Well, what am I meant to do with a car with no side window for 6 weeks? You know, so it just, we decided we'd have to find a different car. So we went in and tried a couple of cars out at dealerships in Lower Hutt, and Nikki said, the problem is, once I've driven a convertible, I don't want to go back to something that's not convertible. And I said to her, well, I'm not going to buy you another car, it's not Japanese, it's got to be Japanese because of the age we're looking at. So she said, well, what's the best Japanese convertible you can buy? And I said, funny you should ask that. So we started looking for MX5s for her. Now, we decided to get her an NC as well, because she quite liked mine, and it was actually just coincidence that the right car with the right spec and everything came up in the same colour. She said to me, how would you feel if I had a car the same colour as yours? I said, I'd be fine with that. So we actually got that before we sold the Beetle, so we had 3 convertibles for a very short time. And when we sold the Beetle, we used the money to slap personalised plates on these, so we thought, well, if we've got cars the same colour anyway, we might as well play on it. Yeah? Now, if any of you have ever driven an MX5, owned an MX5 or ridden an MX5 before, I highly recommend you try sitting in these. You'll suddenly discover that on the interior is reasonably big compared to MX5s. You know, as I said, it is the biggest MX5 they make. They are actually they do have a few good things, like the NA, which is always going to be like the ultimate MX5, because it's the original, isn't necessarily always practical. These ones have the biggest boot by far. It's still not a huge boot, and it's not a huge opening into the boot either, so even, you know, you can hold a reasonable amount in the boot, but getting it in there can still be a challenge. Okay? They have cup holders, which a lot of MX5s don't have, which, again, I mean, you don't live for a cup holder, but if you're using the car, you know, regularly, it's something that's actually handy to have.
There are actually 4 cup holders.
Yeah, although only 2 can actually be used. There's 2 immediately behind the gear lever, and you knock those drinks over every time you change gear. So there's really only 2 in the doors, and you know, you've got to drink a third of your drink before you put it in the door, sort of thing. Yeah, so they do have cup holders. The boots are big enough that as long as you're packing soft bags and not suitcases, 2 people can go away for a week and actually pack all their clothing and things in one of these. Also, the first model MX5s actually had heating that actually did something. The early MX5s, the heating for the interior was quite bad. It was like being blown on. That's what it felt like. These had brilliant heating. If you put the side windows up, you can just sit. I've got in the heater. I've got an indoor and outdoor setting, depending on whether you've got top up or down. Okay? And if you stick it on the outdoor setting, instead of blowing out the vents in the dash, I've got vents lower down in the interior, and it blows out there instead. And that means that it actually keeps the warmth in the interior, even with the roof down. And you basically end up sitting in a cocoon of warmth. You'd still need to wear a woolly hat if you're as tall as I am, or a beanie, just keep the top of your head warm. But yeah, you can put the roof up or down while you're moving, although you can't be going too fast when you do it, you don't want the wind to catch the roof. But earlier MX5s you couldn't, you had to get out of the car to do it. It takes about 5 seconds to put the roof down and 7 seconds to put it up. So it's got one central clip in the middle of the windscreen when you put it up. The other thing is, with the side windows up but the roof down, at 50 kilometres an hour you can drive in a light rain and you won't get wet. At 70 kilometres an hour you can drive in a torrential downpour and you won't get wet. So we, coming back from Whanganui one day, we just turned onto the Foxton Flats and it started to absolute bucket down, thunder, lightning, the full works. We had our roofs down, we just floored it because we were on the Foxton Flats. Everyone we saw must have thought we were mad. Here's these 2 little red convertibles, you know, the windscreen wipers going full bore to keep the screen clean. I was behind, I could see these loose tails of water coming off my wife's tyres. I was staying as dry as a bone. So, yeah, and yeah, I know that Phil, of course, owns a 7, and he's driven mine and been through numerous rides in it. He's quite surprised that at 100 kilometres an hour, you can have a conversation with your passenger, just talking at normal volume, no problem whatsoever. So, there's a lot to be said for a car that's designed from the ground up as a convertible, rather than say something like a Volkswagen Beetle or something that was designed as a hard top and had the roof taken off.
Tell us about the specs of them and the New Zealand New and all that.
Okay, so both of these ones are New Zealand New. Now, the spec, there's a funny story here. So they come in 3 different spec levels. There's the Sport that has 16-inch rims and a 5-speed gearbox. Then there's the Touring, which is what mine is, and that has the 17-inch rims and a 6-speed gearbox. Then the Grand Touring got leather, which is what Nicky's one is, got leather seats, got the option of heated seats, although that one doesn't have that option, and it got the limited slip diff. Now, the reason it's slightly strange is mine has limited slip diff, but according to everything I've found in the paperwork, it shouldn't have, but it does. So I'm wondering if some of the New Zealand New ones were done slightly different specs or something, because mine's definitely the Touring, hers is the Grand Touring, so hers should have the limited slip, and mine shouldn't, and yet they've both got it. But basically all of the 5-speed is actually slightly higher geared than the 6-speed, so it's not a bad gearbox. If you're going to go racing, they recommend you get the 6-speed, because it's stronger than the 5-speed. But otherwise, if you're not going racing regularly, either gearbox, it's not really much different. The New Zealand New ones do run slightly higher than the Japanese import ones, which are slightly lower. It's just the suspension, so you could change it if you wanted to. I actually find I like the suspension the way it is. I'm not going to touch it. They're quite pleasant. You can hang the tail out if you want to. It's not difficult to do, but very, very controllable. This is the second rear-wheel drive car I've ever owned, and the first one I owned I wrote off, so I was a bit nervous about buying another rear-wheel drive car. But yeah, I've had the back of mine out 3 times now, not deliberately, just in the wet on a roundabout type thing. And if the back starts sliding, just let the steering wheel go, it just strains itself up, and on you go. Did you have anything to add to that?
Oh, if you're wondering which car's better, it's mine.
No. They're almost the same. Exterior-wise, the only difference is she puts running lights under her bumper, and the original area, I've replaced my area with a little stubby one. Interior is a wee bit different. The main difference is that when Nikki decided she wanted an MX5, she wanted an auto. I tried to talk her out of it. She learned to drive in a manual, she can drive a manual, and I said, you really have to have a manual. But she insisted she wanted an auto. Well, some of the autos have the Tiptronic gear change, so I made sure I got her one of those. And I've driven her car on a number of occasions. My opinion, it's not as nice as a manual to drive, but it's not as bad as you'd think it would be because it's got the Tiptronic. I do find that it takes about half a second to change gear after you hit the pedal, so you have to get into the practice of hitting the pedal half a second before you actually want to change gear. But yeah, it's not as bad as I feared it would be.
So this is your first convertible? Or what, other than the, after the VW? So how are you finding the convertible lifestyle?
I love it. I can't imagine going back from a convertible now. I love it too much. I'd feel like I'd be in a tin can if I had a roof.
I must admit, when I bought my car, one of the first things I investigated was how can you get, and if so, how much, for the clip-on hardtop, which you see them on NAs and NBs sometimes. They did make them for NCs, but they were extremely rare because the NC you had the option of buying convertible or a fold-up hardtop. So people that wanted a hardtop bought the hardtop one in the first place. Now I gave up on the idea when I discovered that to get one, the only country that's still got the new is Japan. They only come in one colour, and $13,000 landed in Auckland. So I then have to go and pick it up from Auckland, get it resprayed. I mean, that's almost as much as the car's worth, sort of thing. So, but I'll tell you, I'm actually glad that I didn't go down the hardtop, clip-on hardtop route, because even, I mean, I've lived through a whole winter now, even in the middle of winter, it's not actually constantly raining. You get it raining for an hour or so, then it will stop for half an hour, then rain. So even just driving to or from work, if you time it right, you can throw the top down. And, yeah.
So these are your only cars?
They are our only cars, yes. We sold a couple of modern, practical hybrids to fund them.
What size motors are there?
These have a 2 litre. Yep. Now in the UK, these also had an 1800 as an option. Yep. In New Zealand, it was only the 2 litre. They're actually a Ford engine. They're the Ecotec Ford motor. Mm-hmm. So one of the common things, if you want to get more power out of one of these, there's 2 common ways of doing it. One is to put in a Mazda RX-8 motor, because as I said, the floor pan is RX-8, so that bolts straight in. But it kind of ruins the feel of what an MX5 is meant to be. Okay. The other way is you can get the 2.5 Ford Ecotec engine, which bolts straight in. It's, I think it's about 12 millimetres taller, but will still fit under the bonnet, so you don't need to scoop the bonnet or anything. Personally, I don't feel the need to power it up any. One of the things I love about the MX5s is they're not a powerful car, they're not a fast car, okay? But there's a lot more fun to be had driving a slow car fast than there is driving a fast car slow. Okay? And the fact is, you can have a lot of fun with one of these at barely above a speed limit.
Is there anything you don't like or you would change? Like you think could be improved?
No, I've read all sorts of things about people, how to get more power out of them, how to lower the suspension, all these different things. I don't want to do any of those things. I think the suspension setup is perfect. I must say they're a wee bit soft really for 2 people. You can get a harder spring for the back, and if you're going to be driving with 2 people regularly, that might be worth doing because they do tend to bottom out a wee bit two up on a rougher road. Because these are the kind of car you drive on twisty, slower roads sort of thing. You don't drive them down State Highway 1 if you can help it. I've made a couple of small changes to mine, but because it was so original, I didn't want to do any changes that couldn't be changed back. So the red on the dashboard is not standard, that's this vinyl wrap, which can be taken off again. I did the aerial on mine, and I've got the floor mats on mine. Check those out. I made those myself. It's funny because I bought a mat off Trade Me. I went into a carpet guy, and wife two, and said, how much would it cost me to get this turned into 2 car mats? I've got the original car mats I can give you to use as templates. He took one look at the mat and said, I'm not doing it. He said, no. So I thought, well, to hell with you, I'll do it myself. So I went home, cut out the shape using my original mats as a template, and because I haven't got a sewing machine thick enough to sew the edging on carpet, just put tape around the edges to stop it from fraying. Works perfectly. And my wife hates those floor mats, hence why she doesn't have the same mats in her car. But the rug is big enough to get 4 out of it, so I can't decide whether to make another 2 and sell them or keep them, so if mine wear out I can make myself another pair.
I like the way you said driving a slow car fast is much more fun than driving a fast car slow. If you had favorite trips that you've taken, perhaps together, perhaps separately, what trips would that be? Which roads would they have been?
Yeah, so we're members of an MX5 club. There's actually 2 different MX5 clubs in Wellington. One of them's a nationwide club with a Wellington chapter, and one's just a Wellington club. And the funny thing is both clubs are designed for the 2 different types of MX5 owners you get. So there's one club which is a Facebook club and it's free to belong to. The average age of the members is probably between 20 and 25. All of the MX5s are NAs and NBs because that's the cheap ones they can afford. And every time they advertise a ride that they're going on, they always put no skids because they have to, because otherwise their members will. Okay, and even then, like the last run was last Sunday, and the roads were wet, and some of them the temptation was just too much. They were doing donuts and things like that. Okay, then there's the club that we normally run with, which costs $50 a year to belong to, but for that money you get all sorts of things. You get free wine fitnesses on your MX5s, you get cheap tyres, there's so many different places around that do sponsorship deals, so you get special deals, you get an online magazine, things like that. And that one, the average age of the people is probably 50 to 65. Maybe even a bit higher. So that's people that have retired and bought an MX5, pretty much, okay? And that's the one that we prefer to run with. They run at a slower speed. Their favourite roads are always going with the club because it's so much fun driving, you know, with a line of 15 of them or something. And all the roads around the back of Upper Hutt, up around Blue Mountains and all that. I love those. Over to Masterton.
Yeah, Nomataka Hill Road.
Yeah. Any twisty road. I mean, there's an MX5 show and shine coming up in Fielding, and it's the first time there's been an MX5 show that's not in Auckland, in New Zealand. Okay? So I've been tasked with organising for both of the MX5 Wellington clubs to drive up together. I'm expecting up to 100 cars to go up, and I've organised a route that's all up the old State Highway 1 and things, and the only time we're going on State Highway 1 itself is for the 110 section, so I love to do 110 without having to worry about cops.
At the risk of upsetting you, why is the MX5 better than, for example, an MR2?
MR2 is mid-engined. Mid-engined is brilliant if you're a very, very good driver. It can be very dangerous if you're just an average driver. And I'm not going to kid myself, I'm not a very, very good driver, I'm an average driver. Yeah? So the MX5, well, also I wanted a convertible. MR2, a lot of them have removable T-tops, but they don't have a convertible. Well, MRS is, and MRS is ugly. Sorry everyone who owns an MRS. But yeah, in my opinion, the MRS is ugly. You can't tell whether it's going backwards or forwards because they look the same at both ends. So to me, the MX5 was it. And as I said, there's the world's top selling convertible. Parts are not a problem. You can still get parts for this NC. This is 19 years old, and I can still go into the Mazda dealer and buy parts brand new for it.
Thoughts on New Zealand new versus the Japanese? Other than you talk about the suspension.
Yeah, because these are 19 years old, you can't get too picky when you're looking for one. Okay, you can have a few things. So when I started looking, once I decided NC was the one for me, I decided it had to be manual gearbox, and I decided it had to be red, which sounds like a silly thing to decide, but my wife had made it quite clear at the time, I don't know if this will still be the case, but at the time she made it quite clear, this MX5 you buy is going to be the only MX5 you ever get to buy. And I knew that if I bought one that wasn't red, every time I went past a red one, I'd look at it and think I bought the wrong car. So I was actually after the dark metallic red that you've probably seen around quite a lot. I just couldn't find one of those that suited me, that had everything else the way I wanted it. Then this one came up and I decided, oh, what the heck. And now, I'm so used to that colour, I wouldn't swap it for a dark metallic red one, even if someone had one they wanted to swap. So, yeah, that was all I absolutely insisted on when buying mine, was it had to be manual gearbox and it had to be red. Anything else, like, I would have preferred the 6-speed, but I was okay with that. I would have preferred New Zealand U, but I'd just take whatever I got. And I had to have the convertible one, not the fold-up hardtop one. The fold-up hardtop one is quite a lot heavier, and all the weights where you don't want it. Also, the fold-up hardtop is electric, and a 19-year-old car with that being electric, you're just asking for problems. It's all wired up to the electric windows, so if you have problems with your windows, your top stops working, things like that. So I just thought the rag top's so much easier. And admittedly, the rag tops are normally worth a wee bit less. There's not much in it, sort of $2,000 difference in price normally, all else being equal. But basically I wanted low mileage, as tidy a car as I can get, because I knew that buying a nice tidy car is cheaper than buying a rough one and doing it up.
We raced each other, and who's faster?
We haven't raced.
Fast to take off.
Yeah, she'd be faster because she's got the auto and things. The gearbox is, especially when it's cold, it's quite notchy. So it's not a fast gearbox. Doesn't need to be. It's a very, very nice gearbox, but it's not fast.
The gearbox is the same effectively as the Altezza 6-speed and the RX-8. Different casings to fit the car, different ratios, but it's the same family of box. So yeah, they are a good box. And they're good for about 300 horsepower if you treat them right. You get some headroom.
As I said, I don't want to up the power on mine. At the moment, I'm very, very happy with it, just the way Mazda designed it. And funnily enough, that's one of the other differences between these two Mazda MX5 clubs. The younger club with the 20 to 25-year-olds, I call it an open bonnet club. Every time they stop anywhere, they will open their bonnet so you can see all the modifications they've done to their cars. The club that we normally run with is a closed bonnet club. Every time we stop, we don't bother opening the bonnets. All you'd see is a sea of black plastic as it left the Mazda factory. No one in our club modifies their cars. They're just not interested in doing that. Yeah. We like to do little things, perhaps, like you'll notice a little Lego cartoon version of the car on the top of the dashboard. I've got my floor mats. My one, when I bought it, actually had the black roll bar cases here, the plastic cases over the metal roll bars. So they came with black or silver, and I thought the silver looked better, so I got the silver ones for mine, but hers came with the silver.
He was jealous.
No, I think I changed those before you got yours.
You did, actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
As soon as I bought it, I knew those black roll bars were going to go. I'm going to get the silver ones. I just think, especially when you're following behind, it just lightens up the interior a bit, because with the red ones, they only come with two different colours of interior. They're either a black interior or a tan interior, and you get some that have got a mixture, so they've got some tan bits and black bits. But the tan interior tends to discolour a lot, and with the red ones it was always a black interior. And I thought the silver roll bars, the red on the dashboard, the floor mats and things, it just brightens up otherwise all black interior a wee bit.
Thank you very much.
And they are unlocked, so if you want to try them out for size, jump in.